Good evening. This is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich. I would like to thank Region VII of the Idaho Republican Party for inviting me to come and give a presentation that I've done several times in the Spokane area. And it's a presentation that focuses on threats that the Spokane region faces. And quite frankly, many of those threats have come from the Idaho region. So we share a common border. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, we share a common threat. We share a common enemy to the freedom of our country. And it's time that we decide where we stand, who we are. Are we really happy with the way this nation is going? Because it is time for us to make some decisions. I'm going to go through this slide presentation fairly quickly because we don't have a lot of time. This is going to be a longer version than I will present at the formal meeting tonight, but I wanted to do this version to give you an idea and a little bit more in depth than I will go into tonight. So what are the types of threats that we are facing? Well, we have external threats. And yes, Russia is involved, and we will cover that here very shortly. We have internal threats. Threats from both the extreme left and the extreme right. And then we have the political threat, which is basically a combination of all of those threats that I just mentioned. And it is a threat that many, many, many years ago, the first president of these United States warned us against in his farewell address. President Washington foresaw this day, and he foresaw what we were going through today. And he warned us against dividing ourselves among party lines because it would be a death knell to the unity that is so precious to the foundation of this republic. I want you to think about that tonight. Folks, there's no big thing called government here. There's no the government. Not in America, there isn't. Because we have forgotten who and what we are and what those great men of the past created for us. They created a republic of people that represent themselves. We are the government. So when you start pointing fingers at the government, just look back in the mirror. Because we are the government. We elect these people that represent us. So if you want to know who's to blame for the mess that we face, again, tonight, take a hard look in the mirror. Because we're the ones to blame. We do not have a dictatorship in the United States. We have a self-representative government. Sadly influenced by a lot of lobbying, but all the evils that you see in our government, they were created by us. Because we called our representatives and said, Representative, we want you to do this. And they did that. And then people on the other side didn't like what they did. And then we have a conflict. So I want you to think about that political threat. In my realm, these are the type of threats that I face and I have to deal with. On the domestic side, it's the extremism, both of the left and the right. We have white supremacists that are heavily on the uprise and reemerging I just got briefed this week on 2 more organizations of white supremacists moving into the Spokane, Idaho area. We have black national extremists. And yes, ACLU, they do exist. We have Antifa. And we have other left-leaning extremist groups like ALF and ELF. And we don't have a gun violence problem in America, folks. We have a gang problem in America. And this is one of those unique nights that I will walk away, and to some I will be a racist, and to some I will be a disloyal Republican, and to some, well, you'll see what they call me. And then we have lone wolf actors, those that get motivated by hate. And the next one I mention, and you see on this slide, is the national media, because they are a threat. When I gave this presentation last year, September, I believe it was, I had that on the slide. And afterwards, there was a press conference. And one of the young reporters from the Spokane area took great offense because rather than focusing on the material and the content in the presentation, he solely focused on, but you had the media up there on those threats. I said, yes, Chad, I did. Because you are. Folks, our founding fathers were very, very wise men, and they knew that in order to have a free republic, you have to have a free press. The press has forgotten their responsibility in this. They have forgotten why they have constitutional protections. They have forgotten their role in protecting this republic. And their role in protecting this republic is not to give us their opinions. It is to give us the facts and let us decide. They no longer do that. All you have to do is ask one of our newest Supreme Court justices, Justice Kavanaugh, about the national media. What the New York Times did just recently had other media outlets going, I don't think the New York Times realized what they've done. Because they put out falsehoods. That's not their role, ladies and gentlemen. The media has a vital role for this country, and they are letting this country down. It's not that I dislike the media. I am just ashamed of the media right now. Because they are letting our country down. They are not giving us facts, and they are not allowing us to make our own decisions. Then we have international threats. We all know them: Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Russia. And Russia is a threat, but not the way the Democrats want to paint it. It's not the way they paint it towards President Trump. Russia is attacking America. They are influencing our elections, and they are doing it because we have allowed them that opening. And I will cover that later. So how did we get here? Well, we got here because there's a certain road to radicalization. There's a road to extremist radical hate. And that's if I can get you to fear something, I can get you to the next step, which is to make you angry about it. If I can get you angry, I can turn that into hate. And once I turn that into hate, I can motivate you to do some very bad things. And the worst part about this, folks, is they use falsehoods to do it. And this is the outcome of extremism, that extreme hate. You had a federal building in 1995 taken out by Timothy McVeigh, and then we had the World Trade Centers taken out in 2001 by radicalized hate from the foreign nationalists. There is a threat from Antifa, from the Black Identity Movement. We have all these different groups, and they use fear to motivate. Antifa is a domestic terrorist threat. There's no ifs, ands, buts, ors about it. ACLU, they refuse to even acknowledge that there is a black identity extremist threat in America. Matter of fact, here's the slide that says that. But I don't trust the ACLU because they put us, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, in a report, and they made the claim in that report that between 2012 and 2011, my SWAT team, mind you, impacted 588 African Americans in Spokane County. The population of African Americans in Spokane County is about 1.8% of the population. There is no way that number flies, and in order to get that number, you have to use some very unique math. But what were the actual numbers? Well, during those 2 years, we had 40 callouts, 64 suspects, 58 of those suspects were white, and four. That's it, just 4 were African American. Not 588, just 4. So I don't have much use for the ACLU because they are part of this problem. They use falsehood to turn the fear. The new Black Panther Party, it exists. Now, I went to a very left-leaning source to see what they would say about it, since the ACLU said they didn't exist. I went to the Southern Poverty Law Center to see what they said, and this is what they had to say. The new Black Panther Party is a virulent, racist, and anti-Semitic organization whose leaders have encouraged violence against whites, Jews, and law enforcement. For once, the Southern Poverty Law Center and I are in agreement. And this is what their leaders have to say. I hate white people, all of them. We keep begging white people for freedom. No wonder we are not free. Your enemy cannot make you free, fool. He goes on to say, you want freedom? You're going to have to kill some crackers. You're going to have to kill some of their babies. Then how did we end up where we are in America today? Well, it comes down to one date, August 9th, 2014. And the lie, which was Ferguson. Hands up, don't shoot didn't happen, ladies and gentlemen. And I asked the media, when are you going to fix that lie that they helped create? The truth about Ferguson is, and here is the exact wording from the report, was that Michael Brown leaned into the window of that officer's car and beat him. And at one point had the officer's gun pointed at the officer. He had control of the weapon. And as you're reading these slides, keep that in mind. Michael Brown had control of the officer's weapon. That officer was able to gain back control of the weapon, and the first round went into the car door. Michael Brown took off running. The officer followed him. Michael Brown turned on the officer, and charged the officer. And the officer did not shoot until Michael Brown was 6 feet away from him. And I want you to remember, this individual already had control of that officer's gun once, and he was attacking the officer again. Those are the facts of Ferguson that have never been told by the media. If they have been told, it wasn't covered the way the myth was. So as you take a look at the slides that I have put out about this, and I am going through them a little quick because we have a lot of slides to get through. There is something that we have to come to recognize, that the media isn't going to fix this problem anytime soon, because they keep putting out articles like the one I just showed you on this slide. This is not true. Your officers in America, your police officers, are not killing people for no reason. And here's more poison that's being spread. The death toll is mounting. Now, this is what this says. The death toll is mounting. The carnage is heartbreaking. The public's faith in government is deteriorating, according to this slide. And they go on to say that with alarming regularity, unarmed men, women, and children, and even pets are being gunned down by police, who shoot first and ask questions later. And all the government does is shrug and promise to do better. We are getting killed execution style. It's the next slide. Next slide goes into that you're being killed and officers are being found not guilty for doing so, but we are acting as judge, jury, and executioners. So this poison continues to be spread, and the last slide states that, in fact, your police officers are gunning you down like dogs. Now, this is the type of poison that's being spread. And no, folks, it was not a black extremist who wrote that. That was written by a conservative. Here's the information. It was written in August of 2017, and it was pasted on the Spokane Liberty Caucus Facebook page by a Republican PCO, John Christina. That Facebook page is administered by Mr. Christina and Rob Chase. Rob Chase is our former Spokane County Treasurer, Republican, who's now running against our U.S. Congresswoman, Kathy McMorris. And both these people are political allies and friends of Representative Matt Shea. So what does Russia have to do with all this? Russian interference with our elections? Yes, they are doing that. Here's the charging documents. Because, according to the charging documents, Russia saw something unique in 2014, and they decided that the United States was ripe to attack in a way to pull this country apart, both politically and through ideology. And they built Facebook accounts and social media on both the left and the right and played us like a fiddle. And the left extreme and the right extreme falls right in with them. They sucked it right up and they pulled this country apart. And here it is. Again, 2014. What happened in 2014? What gave them that opportunity? Well, it's fairly simple. There was this little confrontation down in Nevada at the Bundy Ranch where Representative Matt Shea and several of your representatives from Idaho went down and talked, and they formed a coalition of Western states called COWS. And Ferguson happened in 2014. So both sides, Russia saw both sides of the political spectrum light up. So, why did Russia do this? Because the ultimate goal of Russia is to balkanize the United States, to break us up, to cause a civil war. And the sad part is you have elements on the left and the right that are moving us directly in that path. And it's actually their goal to do so. And you know, perhaps Russia knew us better than we knew ourselves. Maybe that's why they found that opening. So on the right side, we have all kinds of different groups we've broken ourselves into. Sovereign citizens, extremist radicalized militia groups, extremist radicalized patriot groups, 3%ers, you name it. We have carved ourselves up into little tribes left and right. So let's talk about constitutionalists. Well, how many people in this audience consider yourself a constitutionalist? Well, it looks like pretty much everybody would. So it's safe to say that pretty much nearly all Americans consider themselves constitutionalists. How many of you are veterans? Thank you for your service. One thing I want you to all remember is your police officers, your peace officers, they're constitutionalists too. So who hijacked the term constitutionalist? Radicalized extremist. And let's take a look at what that means.
I'm Bob Powder, Chief of the West Memphis Police Department. My officers, Bill and my son Brandon, didn't realize that there are people at war with this country that are not international terrorists. They are seemingly ordinary people, just like you and me, but they don't recognize the federal government's authority to impose laws or taxes on them. They're known as sovereign citizens. Their beliefs may sound so out there that they appear comical or crazy, but don't discount or ignore these people because they're willing to kill and be killed for these beliefs. We as law enforcement officers need to recognize this very real threat so we can protect ourselves. And maybe if Brandon and Bill had been able to recognize the warning signs of sovereign beliefs, they'd be alive today.
Exit 275 on 40. These guys just shot a police officer right on the exit. You said officer's been shot on 270 what? Exit 275 on 40. 275 on 40. Where are you right now? I'm at the exit. They're right in front of me, about 100 feet. Okay, it's a white what? It's a white caravan. A white guy. Please hurry. He's not shot. 2 cars are dead. The other one's in the ditch. They're both dead now. They killed both cops. They shot one, he fell in the ditch. The other one ran behind the car, and they shot him in the hand. All right, where's the suspect now? They just left in a white caravan. They went right up the exit. That guy had an automatic weapon. They're all with automatic weapons. So where are you at now? I'm standing right over the top. All right, what kind of vehicle are you in? Well, I'm in the FedEx truck. You can't miss it. It's huge. Tell the cop to come forward. He's coming. There was a white unmarked softball unit that had shots fired. Possibly a white van was going to be the suspect. 615, if you got more traffic, he's direct with me. Oh, shit, man, okay.
Jerry and Joe Kane were finally stopped for good after they killed my son and his partner that day, but not before 2 other courageous officers were injured. We, as law enforcement professionals, face danger every day. We know that's part of our job. Hopefully this video is giving you some new tools to keep yourself safe. No officer should have to die like Brandon and Bill.
So, I have done this presentation many times, and some of the fallout to the presentation consists of headlines like this. Sheriff compares constitutionalists to ISIS. And no, folks, I didn't do that. That was never said. However, that is what Representative Matt Shea from my home area and InfoWars put out. And it was a total distortion of what I actually had to say in an article. And the reporter that wrote that article told me at one point, Sheriff, I've never seen anybody lie like this before. I've never seen anybody distort anything this badly before. And all I could say is, welcome to my world. So let's listen to what Alex Jones, Matt Shea's good friend, had to say about the video you just watched and my presentation.
Right now, let's go to some more of your phone calls, and we will be going over that as soon as we're able to grab the video. But that just broke. Mikhail Thalen, Infowars.com. And then let's grab the Spokane video from last year where the SWAT team commander goes, we need this armored vehicle. There are a lot of gun owners and veterans and constitutionalists. And we've got them in Indiana saying the same thing. Constitutionalists haven't done anything to anybody. I mean, maybe 3 cops a year. On average, I think 4 got killed in 2013, 3 in 2014, and I think 2 cops so far have been killed by constitutionalists, where the media could link it to a group, sovereign citizens. I mean, that's one of the lowest crime rates of any group out there. But if you watch MSNBC, you'd believe there is just an epidemic of police being killed by right-wingers. And it's total baloney. But they keep saying it's going to happen. And a lot of it is then it gets the police in this attitude of messing with constitutionalists, and then you get a self-fulfilling prophecy. Wow. So as soon as we get that video, we'll be playing it. The video is up on Infowars.com.
But here's what some of our said, that we have to take the term militia back from the people who have villainized it, and we have to remake the name of the militia. Well, what did Schaefer actually do? Well, Schaefer ended up with a 25-year prison term because he hatched a 2-for-1 plan that for every militia member that was killed, there would be 2 judges or police officers killed. They were actually planning to kill law enforcement and judges, folks. That's who they are and what they are. That's why they are so dangerous. White supremacy is alive and well, and it hides under the guise of Christian identity. Christian identity is a dominionist type of thought process where you don't have free agency under them. You either believe with them or you don't believe what they believe. And if you don't believe the way they do, you are done. And it is real. And it is very much centered in the Spokane, East Washington, and North Idaho area. It is real. The Remnant Resolve, this was their founding document. You have Pete Peters, who was one of their leaders that spread Christian identity all over the inland Northwest. We have the Marble Community Fellowship, and the Birds are part of the Christian identity movement. Barry Bird signed the Remnant Resolve. They are very much into their beliefs, and they are anti-Jewish, and they are extremist in their beliefs. So there's no getting away from the thought process of that ideology when it comes down to this. And, if Barry wants to say that he really doesn't hold those type of beliefs, well, then why did he sign the Remnant Resolve? Because Pete Peters made it very clear that unless everybody agreed that this was the proper thing to do, that God was dictating that they do this, and be aware of that, folks. Be aware of anybody that tells you that God told them to do something. Please be aware of that. It's a trap. It is an extreme trap. But they all signed it. And then we have Team Rugged, which is a spinoff from the Marble community, where they train young men and boys, teenagers, in the art of biblical warfare, and they use the teachings of an old school Confederate, racist, white supremacist. There's no way around it. That's what it is. John Weaver, they use his works to train these kids in biblical warfare, and that they are being trained to kill. Now, anybody in the audience here all up on that? Are you comfortable with that? Is that who we are as Republicans? Because Matt Shea contributed to that effort. Are you all comfortable with that? Training young men in biblical warfare to go against anyone that does not believe the way they do. I want you to think about that. Is that really who we are? And, they make it very clear. The entire purpose behind Team Rugged is to provide patriotic and biblical training on warfare for young men. Everything about it is both politically incorrect and what would be considered shocking truth to modern Christians. Yeah, I'm shocked. I am a Christian. They say their main target is going to be Muslim terrorists. The reality is they'll be unleashed on anybody that doesn't believe the way they do. So when we talk about these things, and I say that they're being trained by white supremacists like John Weaver, these are the documents, folks. These are actual emails sent to and from Matt Shea. There's no denying this. The Northwest Imperative, what is it? Well, I first learned about it when I sat in the barber's chair in 1992, 93, and an individual walked up to me, handed me some papers, and actually tried to recruit me into the white supremacist movement. And yes, I was a police officer at that time. They were heavily trying to recruit us. And from that day on, I have made it my mission to fight these people. This is not a new effort on my part. I have been coming after them, and I will continue to come after them for as long as I live, because I do not agree with their attempt to tear our nation apart, nor do I believe that any person has a right to hurt another person. And these people are about hate. It's very old. New York Times, 1985. And we're going to talk about Richard Butler, who is right up there in Hayden, Idaho. We share a lot in common, ladies and gentlemen. We share a lot in common. Washington and Idaho, like I said, we have a sickness within our midst. The order and the Northwest Impairment is very much linked. The Order was a violent white national group because the Northwest Imperative is about forming a white nation. And the Order was designed to fund it and develop it. And they killed people, and that white nation consists of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Within the last about 15, 20 years, they added Alaska to that mix. But that is who and what they are. They want a white nation. And now they have taken over the prepper movement. In Washington, we have fought back against this forever. But the prepper movement is now the American Redoubt. And if you take a look at the map here, folks, on the screen, what states are involved? What states? Well, they've decided that you can't quite take all of Washington and Oregon now. It's just the eastern sides, but still Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. This is a conference that was held in Idaho that Representative Matt Shea spoke at and shared the stage with John Weaver. Again, take a look at some of the talks. We're going to talk about the Confederate battle flag. We're going to talk about when is it time. That when is it time is when to take up arms and go against your government, folks. Representative Shea did his presentation, and an individual by the name of Pastor Chuck Baldwin from the American Redoubt gave a presentation. And here's the YouTube links and everything else, folks. You can look this up. I challenge you to do your own research on these people. Open your own eyes. Because Chuck Baldwin is an anti-Semitic, an old school anti-Semitic. John Weaver, there he is with his Confederate flag tie. Just so you know, he's an old school Confederate. And then we come to Matt Shea and the Coalition of Western States. And he formed that in 2015 or 2014, and he used it in 2015 to spin up a situation in Oregon concerning the Hammond family. They started that issue, folks. They started ginning that up. And your representatives, Heather Scott, Sage Dixon, and Judy Boyle, went to Mauer with him. Again, what have we become? This is an Idaho candidate and a GOP official who is asking the question, what are you willing to kill for? Folks, I'll tell you, there's not very many things in life, period, worth killing another human being for. Now, there's a lot of things worth defending, but to phrase it in that way, what are you willing to kill for? is taking it to a totally different level. This is no longer about defending. This is offensive actions now. This is going on the offense. I'm willing to, and I've done it multiple times. I've signed my name on the dotted line many times. United States military, law enforcement, I sign my name and I'm prepared to die for this country at any time. Matter of fact, there are a lot of people that warned me not to come here tonight, folks. I've lived under death threats for several years now. Yeah, some would say because I can't keep my mouth shut. But you're right, I can't, not with this type of evil going on in our nation. And this is Heather. Is this really who the Republican Party has become? Is this who we are? If it is, then I don't know. I don't recognize you anymore. And no, Martin Luther King was not a communist. Martin Luther King was a Republican. To label him a communist is to be and mimic the John Birch mentality. They are white supremacist ideology. Matter of fact, one of the leaders in the 60s made this comment: the KKK will be around much longer than the civil rights movement. Thank God they were wrong. And now we have the 3%ers. I don't know how freedom and liberty got so confused. These people have destroyed the image of freedom and liberty. Freedom and liberty have almost become negative words because they're destroying it. And they are tarnishing the memory of our founding fathers. You're not patriots. You're armed thugs. That's all you are. Anything with a 3%er in it, you're armed thugs. Do you get my drift? Do you have a full concept of the way I truly feel about you? You are not patriots. You are nothing more than armed thugs. And you need to rethink your position on life. You are going down a very negative path. And I'm calling you out on it. Anytime, any place, I will call you out on it. And here's Matt Shea's true operational plan. This is reality, folks. And notice, they use code names. They don't use their real names. Where did I get this information? I got it straight from a person who was one of Matt Shea's closest allies. He was his bodyguard. He was the head of his security, Jay Pounder. They might want to claim that Jay wasn't. No, but I was there. I watched Jay play that role, and Jay and I sparred with each other now and again, and Jay Pounder has since apologized for the bad things he has done. He is trying to make amends for it, and he has given out all this information about the true nature of Matt Shea and what he brings to the table. This is not somebody who didn't know. He had all the documents. He had full access to the documents, and he has brought them all out. These are actual warning orders and operation orders, and these are the things that they planned on doing. And they especially wanted to try to make law enforcement act like tyrants. Why? Because they needed a trigger. And this is not an old or a new scheme. It's an old scheme. And Richard Mack, any of you that believe that Richard Mack is worth listening to, I got news for you. Do your research. He's not. He can't decide if he's a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, what he is. He's run under both guises. Yes, he was a former sheriff, lost that because he didn't know how to take care of things at home, and has tried to run under different things, but he was a Democratic sheriff in Arizona. Take a harsh look at him, and here's what his game plan was down at Bundy 1 in Nevada: to put women up front so they would be killed first, to show the extreme tyranny of the government. That was his plan. And I can tell you that there is no American sheriff that would ever endorse this thing. You know, this is the type of stuff that Saddam Hussein might pull, but no American sheriff would ever think that way, or nor would we ever dream of putting women in that type of danger. But he's willing to do it. He's willing to find that trigger, and he wants to do it so you will go against your government. This man is not worth your time. And all he does is come and speak to you to raise money, and that's it. So there are so much to talk about in reference to this, but let's talk about what the Oath Keepers had to say about Malheur and Ammon Bundy's attempt to start a civil war. And yes, that's what he wanted to do. Well, here's what the Oath Keepers had to say. I had a hunch that Ammon was going to go beyond a peaceful march and protest, and was going to conduct some kind of armed direct action. These people don't seem to like Ammon and company much because of what they did. They talk about how he tried to kick another Bundy 1 Nevada style thing up, and the Oath Keepers, you can't do that. It's got to evolve naturally. Well, we know how it evolved now, because there was a report done in the state of Washington by the House of Representatives, not just the Democrats, the entire House. And we found out who was truly behind these things. The Oath Keepers point out the Hammonds didn't want Ammon there. They didn't want any of this to happen. They opposed it. Matter of fact, they go on to say that Ammon deceived the Hammonds and the people of Harney County. They were attempting to rope them into a premeditated and manufactured armed standoff. Both Ammon Bundy and Ryan Payne, who the Oath Keeper, in reference to Ryan Payne, suspect is an agent provocateur, told the locals of Harney County Committee of Safety, and folks, those are key words, Committee of Safety. When you start hearing those things, what that is truly, that's a shadow government being built underneath you. They're building shadow governments underneath you. Get that straight and get it right. When you start hearing anybody talk about committees of anything, that is a shadow government being built, and they need you. They need the locals to do that so they are justified in their actions. They are not kind to what they have to say about Ammon Bundy. They are not kind at all. The Oath Keepers, I'm pointing out. And they point out it's not necessarily right for us or for the people to come in here and make a stand without you, the locals, forming these committees and being in control of it. So these are governments being formed underneath your electeds. They are shadow governments. Again, a stress that the Committee of Safety was necessary to justify what they wanted to do. They go on and they talk about, we oppose what they're doing, but you know, FBI, if you do anything heavy-handed, you stand the risk of a civil war. The Oath Keepers continue on, and they say that this is a bad plan that we might be stuck with because they want to kick off a second American Revolution. That's what they wanted to do. This is what Mauer was all about. This is further what the Oath Keepers have to do. Folks, we're starting to run out of time, so I want to speed this up just a little bit. So take a close look. But this is what it was all about. Ammon Bundy and company and those who went up there had one goal in mind, and that was to hit the tripwire, to start a civil war. It is very, very clear, even from the Oath Keepers and the extreme right side of the line. One thing I will point out is the Oath Keepers also paint Ryan Payne as a liar who falsely claimed to be a United States Army Ranger. But what were they really after? Well, I want you to listen to some things. First, they were after a martyr.
Real outposts that are attacked are immediately abandoned. Okay?
And we already have our martyr.
Real outposts that are attacked are immediately abandoned. Okay?
And we already have our martyr.
Is this.
Where's the fight?
Where's the fight? Where are
Are you saying going full-on attack against that's crazy.
Go find out who works for the Fed and start executing them. Execute them, their families, everyone. Making a statement, if you work for these countries, you're gonna die.
So, is that who we are as Republicans? Are we now advocating that we go out and kill our federal agents and their... And here's one more. Why did they really come? I apologize for the language. It's just the way it is. This is who they are.
And all I see is a bunch of salty motherfuckers that are tucking and diving with their fucking tails between their legs. We came here for one fucking reason, and that's to fight. All you guys want to fucking leave because you want to be complacent.
The Constitution.
So the last line of that was when he said, "We came here to fight." Another individual said, "I came here to defend the Constitution." How do you defend the Constitution by breaking the law? Help me understand this. How does that work? You're going to defend the Constitution by going out and breaking the law and starting a civil war. How? There were many falsehoods put out by these people. Many falsehoods. The FBI tried to put a gag order on locals. No, that wasn't true. They didn't want a peaceful resolution. Folks, the people that started this, Ammon and company, they said the sheriff up there was a former BLM employee. That wasn't true. The FBI was posing as militia members. That wasn't true. The chief, the fire chief said he caught the FBI posing as militia members. That wasn't true. The BLM set prescribed burns to kill cows and destroy ranches. That wasn't true. Here's the one video that makes that statement. This fire was actually started by a lightning strike, not a prescribed burn. They lie, folks. They lie to you on a continual basis. That is how they suck you down these rabbit holes. They use your emotion, but you don't go and check because guess what? Everything on the internet and Facebook isn't true. But we treat it as if it is. This is their power over you. Could Kearney County happen here? Yes, it could, because it almost happened in Spokane County with a little place called Turnbull Wildlife Refuge. And I've worked on preventing that for 3 weeks. We have an extreme racist past in the Pacific Northwest. Again, we share a common border. The Kehoe group, they had connections to Eastern Washington. They actually bombed the city hall in their hope for a white homeland in the Northwest. You had Richard Butler in Hayden, Idaho, Christian Identity, Marble Community Connections. We transplant this stuff all over, and sadly, people die. This all came from us. The Phineas priesthood, it came from your side of the line, but they came to my side of the line and committed bank robberies and everything else. This is how they were armed. This is what they did. MLK, 2011. I was in this march, folks. 500 kids. Where's Matt Shea? He was in Boise, Idaho at a Tea Party rally. I was there. And now we have the base, 2019. The base is controlled by Russia. The leader of the base, St. Petersburg, is where he lives. So life under Representative Matt Shea's plan of restoration. Well, first, they want to try to get reconciliation done so there's not a proactive guerrilla war. Separate the Limas. Oh, that would be anybody loyal to the United States. That's what a Lima is. Understand this. That's what a Lima is. There will be no disarmament or military courts during reconciliation. Well, that implies that he's going to disarm you once he's done. And any of the Limas who allowed the federal government to take over their companies will lose their company. They're going to steal the Lima houses and give it to loyalists on their end. Committees of whole. Remember I told you about that word, committees of anything? Well, guess what? And I've watched this play out. They've actually set up these assemblies in the Spokane area. They're going to fire everybody, but they're going to negotiate military aid, timeout. Only Congress gets to do that, correct? Remember, they have nothing to do about saving the United States. This is tearing the United States apart. Militias are a heavy influence. They're going to fire all law enforcement. And here's their constitution, their preamble. We the people of, and it's not the United States, folks. They never mention the United States again in this. But it will be a constitutional preamble dedicated to our Lord and Savior. But there will be no longer a we the people of the United States of America under their game plan. There's so much more that we can talk about, but fallout, there's been a lot of fallout to my presentations. The Tea Party attacked me. They said I kind of compared constitutionalist white supremacists. Never happened. They attacked my deputies for that. We had actual elected officials claim that we were filming them surreptitiously. We don't have body cameras. Again, InfoWars and Matt Shea, constitutionalists and ISIS. The articles, folks, if being loyal to the United States of America, my Constitution, my country, and my flag makes me a loyalist, guilty as charged. I am guilty as charged. because I believe in the United States of America. I believe in you as a people, and that is why I do what I do. We are better than this. Time to wake up. Because they send threats like this. This was sent to me, folks. Anthony Bosworth sent this to me. Notice where that gun's pointed at the bottom. View at my head. And no, I am not standing on a Gadsden's flag. The publication that created that article decided it'd be cute to put my head on a body standing. I told him never to do that again. And here is Sheriff Dave Ward from Harney County. What they put him and his family through was disgusting. And this is Sheriff Dave Ward's words to me. Sheriff, if they get away with this, there will be no small community in America that is safe. Ladies and gentlemen, they cannot get away with this. I refuse to allow them to get away with this. And here's today's attack. Your members received this email from Mr. Dalkey. And, you know, it's amazing. Folks, he says, I've had running conflict with Matt Shea for 12 years. 12 years, we put that at 2008. You know what happened in 2008? Well, you can blame me for Matt Shea. Because in 2008, I worked very diligently to get him elected his first term. Even though my gut told me not to. I did it as a favor for a dear friend, Representative Lynn Schindler, who was a true Republican. I didn't trust Matt to begin with. He lied to me in our very first meeting. I asked him if he had anything that I needed to worry about. He said, nope. 4 months later, I'm reading a headline saying, candidate for representative of the 4th Legislative District has domestic violence issues. Guess what? He had the Sheriff of Spokane County's endorsement. I should have dropped him like a hot rock then. But for 4 more years, I tried to work with Matt. I was actually assigned by the Republican caucus, Joel Kretz, to keep Matt out of trouble. I worked diligently to be that mentor. And in 2012, I called Joel and said, there's no helping this guy. He's dangerous, and you need to do something about him. So, no, Bill, 12 years ago, all the way through to spring of 2012, I worked diligently trying to make Matt Shea successful. The biggest political mistake of my entire life. I'm responsible for Matt Shea. And that's why I work so diligently trying to repair the damage that man is doing to a country I love. That is why I am here tonight. I'm trying to undo the damage that I unleashed on all of you. Bill also says that Matt's a champion for fighting sanctuary cities. Never seen him do it. Bill says that I support sanctuary city, not according to Fox News. When I was on Fox News, and I actually said that, you know, if the Governor Inslee doesn't want to enforce the Congress's laws on immigration, then one of two things. He should either be censored or he should be arrested for obstruction of justice. And no, I haven't made that arrest because that'd be a federal crime. But anytime the president wants to get with the U.S. attorney and issue that order, I'd be more than happy to execute it. But that's what's going to have to happen because we do need to secure our borders. And he wants all kinds of questions asked about things and due process. You know, after I read this email, I contacted the investigator of the Rampart report. And what does she have to say? Well, She said Matt Shea was never denied due process. Matt Shea did what Matt Shea always does. He refused to be interviewed. Matt Shea, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I've challenged Matt Shea to stand on any stage, anywhere, any place, except under his terms. It will be a neutral venue, and you can point out where I'm wrong. He's never done it, and he never will, because he doesn't have that type of courage. She went on to say that contrary to what Bill put here, that their report never found that Matt Shea was innocent. Ever did she say that. According to Bill's email, that's what the report found. No, it wasn't. She is very adamant that Matt Shea, that they found evidence and witnesses that state he participates in political violence inside and outside the state of Washington. That's what she had to say. I think her last line on this is telling. Shea presents a present and growing threat of risk to others through political violence. Left unchecked, his behavior and actions will continue. And here's how you break a country. You divide us up into hostile groups. You destroy their faith in their natural leaders, and that's what Matt Shea does all the time. If anybody steps up against him, that leader is targeted. I've watched him drive many people out of politics. They've tried to eliminate me multiple times. 2014, Matt Shea and the extreme progressives teamed up and ran somebody against me. That was actually a team effort. The only party that's ever ran against me, folks, is my own. You know, they have it right. They have done all this to us. They have separated us out. And the last part of this is that they cause the breakdown of the old moral virtues, honesty, sobriety, confidence, faith in the pledged words, and ruggedness. That is how you destroy a country. We have abandoned our values. We have abandoned our values as Republicans and Americans. And until you regain your values, until you say that a man's character actually counts, you will be in this mess forever. How is it that we stand with people that lie on a continual basis? Because that's what Matt Shea and the 3%ers and all these other people and the Heather Scarts of the world have done. They have lied to you on a continual basis, and you stand with them. The things that they do in the dark. They use code names, folks. They don't stand in front of you on a stage like this, like I am tonight. And they do not face you. They do it in secret meetings where you have to turn your cell phones in so you can't be recorded, or they can't be recorded. They do things in secret combinations. They are what we have been warned about all our lives, if you understand what I am saying to you. They are the ones that do things in the shadows. They don't have the guts to do it up front. And the worst part of this, ladies and gentlemen, they use our Savior's name to do it. They use our Savior and they use his image and they use everything about him to lie to you and make you believe that they are the holy ones of Israel. They're not. They're thugs. And they're liars. And it is time that we decide if character counts anymore. I don't know how many times I have been told, Sheriff, I don't care about a man's character. He votes the way I want him to. And that is what they have said about Matt Shea. They don't care about his character. They simply votes the way they want him to. Is a vote worth your character? Is a vote worth your values? Is a vote worth your country? Because you are trading your freedoms for lies. Is it worth losing everything that we are as a nation? Because at one time, a man's word meant something. At one time, a man's character meant something. Without character, our founding fathers said, this republic cannot stand. They said it, folks, not me. President Washington warned us of today. He warned us, and I challenge you to read his farewell address. Because of time, I'm not going to be able to do that in this section. But I will give you a brief synopsis. He said, the only thing, the glue that binds us is our unity. And he said that party and party dogma will destroy that unity. He warned us against forming parties. He said that parties have a place in governments such as monarchies and dictatorships, but not in the form of government where the people are the voice. Because he said parties drive disunity. And he warned against it. He said, do not go down that road. The photograph that you see in this video is one that hangs in my living room. And I hope that our president is still praying for us, because we need that. Folks, this is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich. It's time for you to decide who you are and what you stand for. Have a good night.